Hello, it's Andrea from Prairie Sky Paper Crafts, your independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Manitoba. I had an inquiry recently about getting accurate stamping with a large background stamp. If you have ever used one, you know the chances are pretty good that something is not going to work exactly the way that you wanted it to, or you're going to miss a spot, or maybe you missed a spot when you were inking up the stamp. So I'm going to show you a few ways that you can avoid this. I've also got a cleaning trick for you. So we're just going to get started. Now I've already cut a few sheets of 4 1/4 by 5.5 white. I will be flipping it over on the ones that I'm making intentional mistakes on. Or even if it's an accidental mistake, you can flip it over. The paper is thick enough that when you layer it onto your card base or a matte layer, you're not going to see what's on the other side. So I have got this on the F block, which is the largest block that Stampin' Up! Sells. If you don't have an F block, you can use the inside of your stamp case, or because I don't want to get ink on my stamp case, I'm actually just going to lay it flat on my desk. I'm using Granny Apple Green. You can use whatever color you choose. If you're going to be coloring your stamp, you're going to want to keep in mind what you are going to be using for your coloring. If you're using a water-based application, you're going to want to use StazOn. If you're using a alcohol base like the Stampin' Blends, you'll want to use the Memento Black because they don't react with each other, so you're not going to get any smudging or smearing. All right. So I have inked up my stamp. I'm going to lay it. I like to start left to right. So I'm just going to layer it like this and then move across. And then I'm going to rub, making sure that every area is going to get a little bit of ink. Now, for the larger stamps, I find that applying the paper to the stamp is a little bit easier, just because you can actually see and feel what's being pressed. Now your fingers will get a little bit inky, but it's not a big deal. If you don't have great hand strength or coordination, you can also rub it over with another block. This one that I'm using is the E block. Okay, and then just lift it up, and then your impression is pretty good. You have to be mindful of where you place it, but if you get an edge that isn't perfectly covered, it's not a big deal. All you can do, or what you can do, is just trim it and then add a mat underneath. So that's way number one. Like I said, that way I find the easiest, unless you have a Stamparatus. Now this, I've mentioned before a few times that I was a little bit intimidated by my Stamparatus when I got it, but I do love it. And since my accident, it's been really, really helpful. It's got 2 rows for positioning. So if you're doing a multi-step, I need to grab another plate. That's all right. So if you're doing a multi-step, you can put one stamp on this plate and you can have another stamp on this plate and have it positioned. So all you need to do is ink up your first stamp, place it down, pretend you have a second one, ink up this stamp and place it down. Really easy and really quick for bulk producing Christmas cards, birthday cards, or whatever. But I do love it. Since I've been using it, I've fallen more and more in love with this thing. Okay. You can also get, or it comes with a foam mat. So if you're using photopolymer stamps, which are a little bit thinner, you'll want to put this underneath because it's that layer of foam that kind of gives you a really good impression. And it builds it up a little bit because the polymer stamps, the clear ones, are a lot thinner than the red rubber, because the red rubber has the foam underneath of it, the photopolymer does not. And you can also get grid paper to go on top of this so that it looks exactly like this, so you can kind of line up where your stamp is. All right, now I'm just going to put a piece of paper towel here so that I can see. Ah, good thing I had a paper towel there. All right, I'm just going to make sure that it's good and clean. Normally, I would just put my paper on, but since the stamp is, whoops, already dirty. Okay, there we go. Oh my goodness, it's going to be a day, guys. Okay, good enough. And the grid lines, I'm going to show you. There's grid lines on here that match the grid lines on your base. So if you match it up before you place the paper, you'll be good. I like to put my paper on, make sure my stamp is where it needs to be, and then we're good. The bottom is also got a spot for 2 of our magnets. If I'm using a background stamp, generally I like to have a larger piece cut, just so that I can trim it to size when I need to, because the paper is smaller than the stamp, and then when you place your magnet on it, you could lose a piece. Or if you're just going to make it, put it on a mat, you can always just use whatever size paper and then just trim off where the magnet was. I am, oops, thought I had a bigger piece here. That's all right, we'll just make do with what we've got. Okay, so place my magnet there. Now, if you have both magnets on, you do want to be mindful that they don't touch, because if they do, they can snap. That's what happened with this one. I've actually heard of them snapping into shards so that you end up with more than one piece. You can put a piece of painter's tape or washi tape, or even just regular Scotch tape to make a little bit of a handle so they're easier to pick up. These are rare earth magnets, so they will not, a little bit of adhesive on the magnet will not affect their strength at all. Now, what I like to do on my Stamparatus when I am inking it up is put something underneath the other side so that when I apply my ink, actually that's a little too high. When I'm applying my ink, my stamp, here we go. This is what I usually use. It's just another ink pad. Your stamp won't waffle or bounce around, so you'll be able to get a better impression. Now I'm going to intentionally not ink it well, so that you can see how you can fix it when you do go to ink it. All right, push, push, push. So it's not spectacular. So what I'm going to do is ink it up again. And because the magnet keeps it where it belongs, I can ink it up as many times as I need to get a good impression. Now, it's not going to be a great impression where I have the magnet. Again, if you have issues with hand strength or mobility, you can always use another stamp block. I've heard of people using dry erase markers just to kind of give that little bit of extra push and pressure. Now, there's been times that I've needed to ink a piece of paper up 3 or 4 times before it would do a really good impression. Now, this stamp set does have sort of a watercolor distressed quality, so it's not going to give you a complete impression that's going to be perfect, because there are spots that are a little bit more faded, I guess. But we're just going to do one more application of this. And close this ink pad, because after the third one I'm going to be done. But then I'm going to also show you how you can do multi-step stamping. Didn't intend to do that, but I've got this stamp open, so I might as well. All right. So now I'm just going to give it a bit of a clean. And I've gotten green in the process, but it's all good. So if I was going to do, or I am going to do, an actual tie-dye with this stamp, I can either move my stamp up or down according to the grid lines, or I can move it down with, just pop the plate out and move it down. So when you see the cards that have like happy, 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 happy birthday, and the happies are all lined up, it was probably done with the Stamparatus. But I'm going to move it down and over by 2, because I am going to trim this card before I make my final product. Okay, and then I'm just going to ink it up. This one is Old Olive. Oh, didn't do a great job inking right there. I love this stamp, but I haven't used it as much as I probably should have, actually. I'm going to do by 1. Yeah, I think that'll be better. Okay, and again, oh, actually that was Mossy Meadow. I'm going to change the position of my magnet, put it up to the top. I think it might be time to re-ink Mossy Meadow. Okay, so there's our tie-dye ready to go. Now, if you wanted to, you can add another color, but I'm just going to leave it like this for now. But I am going to show you, set our stamp off to the side. If you get ink onto your Stamparatus, you can just wipe it off with a paper towel or run it under some warm water, but sometimes you get a little bit of staining from the ink. So I love Stamp and Mist. It's the cleaner for the photopolymer or for the stamps. And you can also use it on your blocks and on your tools. So also, I've got a little bit of Memento ink on here from previous projects, and it does take a bit of elbow grease, but all you really need to do, now it's on both sides, so you're seeing it get clean. I'll take a little bit, and then all you need to do is run it underneath a little bit of water, and it'll come right off. Just a little bit of a scrub. And of course, the earlier you get the ink off, the better you'll be. All right, so I'm going to keep scrubbing this after the video, make sure it's all nice and clean. I hope that you found some tips and tricks on how to get your background stamps to stamp a little bit better. If you have any other ideas, please feel free to share them. You can either pop over to my Facebook page and leave a comment there, or you can comment down below on the video. And also, every week I send out a newsletter filled with tips and tricks and ideas. If you haven't subscribed but would like to get it, please hop down below to the link and click to join my email list. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.